Hi friends, I'm Helman. Thanks so much for being here today. Today we're going to use a one-sheet wonder to create several cards from one sheet of paper. But this one-sheet wonder is a little bit different than a lot of the other ones you may have seen. What I'm going to do is take one sheet of white cardstock, cut it into several pieces, use those to stamp on with a beautiful stamp set, and then we're going to turn those into the highlights for a collection of cards that are all going to coordinate. If you like clean and simple cards, simple stamping without a lot of layers, without a lot of details, or you like to branch out and do something a little bit simpler sometimes, I'd love for you to stick around and watch. Let's get started. We are going to start off right away and make our cuts to our piece of 8.5 by 11 white cardstock. I will put a template for all of these measurements on my website, but again, I'm gonna walk through it here so you can watch this several times if you decide you want to do this yourself. First thing I'm going to do is cut off a strip that measures 3.5 inches. The next one I cut off is and I have my paper the tall direction here. I'm going to cut one off at 3 inches. And then the last piece I have left will be 2 inches wide. Now let's trim those in the same order we created them. This is the one that's 3.5 inches wide now. I want to cut a piece that measures 4 3/4 inches. I'll cut a piece that is 5.5. And then we'll have a strip left over that is 3/4 inch wide. Now let's look at that 3-inch strip. We'll cut one that's 5.5. And this next one, we're actually going to turn lengthwise and cut this into a strip that is 2 inches wide and a strip that is 1 inch wide. And then our last long strip that was 2 inches wide, we are going to cut a piece off that measures 5 inches. And the 6-inch strip that is left over, we are cutting into 2-inch sections. So there is one that measures 2 by 2, and I'll make one more cut. And here are the others. I get a lot of questions about the lines on my trimmer and what these are for. I created this as an easy way to do my cuts for my card bases and card fronts or card mats to go on the front. If you want details on that, I will have a link in the video description below where you can watch all about that and mark up your trimmer if you want to. Now let's take these pieces that we've created, and they don't look like much, right? We are going to turn them into some beautiful works of art using a lovely stamp set called Artistically Inked. This is a really unique set with a watercolor appearance, and I've got just one card here that I've created with it with those lovely roses, but we are going to create, I believe, 7 cards here with these pieces that we just cut. So these 3 squares are going to turn into one card. So I'm going to bring them in and stamp them at the same time. Let me tell you which colors of ink I have chosen. I have So Saffron, Orchid Oasis, lovely blue purple, Sahara Sand, Soft Succulent, stuck to my dimensionals, and Fresh Freesia. So these are the colors I have, and I have all of the stamps from this stamp set on blocks and ready to go, okay? So we are going to start stamping and get these stamped pretty quickly, and you'll see how quickly we can make some really lovely cards with this idea, this clean and simple one-sheet wonder idea. Now I have my Stampin' Chamois off to the side, so each time I finish stamping, I am going to reach off to the side and clean that stamp up. Now I'll show you what I'm doing here. I am inking, I think you can see this, inking this leaf, but the very tip of it, where the little stem is sticking off the edge. I don't really want that little stem over top of my flowers. I feel like that makes it look not very natural if I stamp that over top of the flower. So I'm inking it where that part doesn't get any. And then when I stamp, I think it looks a little bit more natural that way, okay? So we got 3 of these. I love that the stamp set has some really unique little extra pieces. Texture stamps are the best, like these little dots. So I am going to use these several times on these cards, and I am stamping multiple times, if you can see that, because I like that faded effect that you get with the darker ink and then a little bit lighter. So this will be for one of our cards. So we'll set these off to the side. We will get back to these here in a few minutes. Now let's do this one, and I'm going to bring in this big, beautiful, bold, kind of just looks like a blob, right? But once we add some leaves and put a center into it, this turns into just the most beautiful flower. So I'm going to stamp 1 there. We'll stamp 1 where you see a little bit more on that corner. We'll make a 3rd that we don't really see the whole thing up here. Now let's add a center to the ones that we can see the center. So I'll get my So Saffron, I've got my little round stamp here, and add to those. Let's add a little bit of green. Don't really want the leaves to show up a whole lot on this one, but I do want them some. Let's do that. And then let's add just a little, how about this one, a little tip of one there. And I want to add a few of those dots to this one as well. So let's add some dots on this one. Let's add those in this fresh freesia color. Okay, and I think that one looks nice. Next, let's do our largest piece. I'm going to bring in this. This is the largest stamp in the set. Just a really neat watercolor look, watercolor or alcohol ink. I am going to ink this with Sahara sand, and I am going to create basically a border all the way around this piece with this stamp. So on the ends, I only need to stamp once. On the longer edges, I need to stamp twice. So here you can see how neat of a border that creates. Now let's go ahead. I'm going to bring in this big stamp again. This time we'll stamp it with fresh freesia. Sort of over here down towards the bottom corner. Let's add a center to that. We'll add a few leaves. And a little bit of texture again. Let's do some Orchid Oasis dots this time. And I believe I just inked my stamp in the wrong color. Does that ever happen to you? So see how these dots are not the color I planned on them being? Let's just add a little color over top of that. And just to make it look like I planned this, let's add a few of those dots over here too. And you know what? Since we're doing that, we're just gonna make it look like we totally planned this, okay? We'll add more dots of both colors over there, okay? Isn't that neat? I think this stamp set is such a unique one. So we'll set that one off to the side. Next, this is the one that measures 3 by 5.5, I believe. And let's grab that big stamp again. We are going to use this again with a Sahara sand. And I want to stamp it several times here across the middle of this piece. And I'm flipping the stamp upside down each time I stamp, just so that it doesn't look the exact same each time. Let's stamp this 4 times. So I have some of that white still showing at the edges, and I'll probably stamp my greeting for the card onto one of those strips. So I wanted to leave a little bit there at the edge. Now I'm going to, this one's going to look a little bit like that last one we created. So I'm going to stamp this large one with fresh freesia again. Let's add a few leaves. I think it's so much fun. I'm curious if you enjoy creating your own scenes with stamps. That's basically what we're doing right now. We are creating a picture with our stamps. Now, of course, you can use stamps in a way that you just stamp a particular image and you don't necessarily put a lot of them all together like this. But I'm curious if this is something you enjoy doing where you actually put a lot of them together. Now there's a little stamp in the set we haven't used yet, this little cluster of 3 flowers, and honestly at first I used it on a border strip and I didn't like how that turned out exactly the way I'd done it, and I wasn't exactly sure what to do with the stamp. And then I realized, oh hey, I could just stamp some of these over the top and they'll look like extra little flowers in the cluster. So I am trying to sort of line them up so they, I don't know, so they end up in places that I think they look like they're kind of on the edges between the flower and the leaves, if that makes any sense. And here is this one, okay? Next, we have a couple left. Here is one. We're going to leave a fair amount of white space on this one, but I want to start with this large flower. This time we are stamping an Orchid Oasis. Such a beauty. Is that not like one of the most amazing colors? Now let's add a few of these roses. I haven't been using very many of the roses so far. Let's put one up here. Let's do 2 down here. And when I stamp the roses or anything, I like to turn it around so that we don't end up with the exact same orientation, because that just doesn't look very realistic when that's the way it turns out. So again, I'm inking the leaf stamp so that the little stem at the very end doesn't get covered, and that was not my finest work. I ended up with a little white gap there, but I stamped again, and you know what? I think it totally works now. Let's do one down here, and if I need to, I can flip over and see like, okay, so how much of that did I not get inked? That helps me estimate how far to overlap when I do stamp here. Okay. Let's do that. And there is another little tiny leaf stamp in the set. I have not used it yet, but this is a nice one to add. And I'm inking the opposite way. Okay, leave the stem hanging over. This is a nice one to add little individual leaves and little spots if you end up with a white spot that you think needs something filled in, kind of like right here. I think that would be a good spot. We could add one down here. I mean, we could go on all day, right? But I think that looks good. And we are going to leave that one just like that as soon as I fill in the center of the flower. Okay, we are almost done stamping these pieces. We have 3 left. They're all smaller ones. This one, we are going to use the roses. Going to do these in fresh freesia. I'll do one up here at the top. I'll do one there. We'll put one here off the edge a little bit. Let's add some leaves. And just because it fills in a little bit more space, I'm leaning more towards using this double leaf, but you could definitely use that single one more if you like it. And then I'll put one up here, kind of like that. Let's add some of this little flower cluster. We'll add these with the Orchid Oasis. I think these colors blend really nicely, but you could definitely do different colors if you prefer. And I like that I can stamp over top of the freesia and some of the other colors with this Orchid Oasis, and it shows up nicely. Then let's do one little cluster down here. How about like that? Okay, so we will leave this piece just like this. I have two pieces left. Now this little strip, I am not going to stamp to use as the main attraction on a card. I'm going to save this one and use it as a greeting, to stamp a greeting on. This one little strip that is left, I am going to use that rose stamp again. And which one should I start with? I'll start with Fresh Freesia in the center. I am going to stamp roses across this in several different colors. Let's add one in Orchid Oasis. I haven't used my So Saffron a whole lot yet, but let's add one there. Let's add another one here. And as you can see, some of them I'm stamping in the center, some are above center, some are below center, just to get some variation there. And then let's add one more on the end with Orchid Oasis. Now let's add in a few leaves. We'll fill in some of those spaces between them with this little individual leaf stamp. And I inked that the opposite way of what I wanted to do, so I'll clean it off real quick. I'll show you my Stampin' Chamois. This is how I clean most of my stamps. I absolutely love it. I keep it in an empty stamp case. It is flexible. I just wet it with water in between uses. It usually dries out. And it used to be pretty and purple. It has gotten very stained and ugly over the years, but it still works perfectly. So what I do every time I clean my stamp, I basically just blot my stamp on here, and I don't have to pick it up most of the time, which keeps ink off of my hands, and I just love it. So thought I would show you that because I know a lot of stampers clean stamps with baby wipes, and I think this works so much better. It keeps the ink off your hands. So I'll have links to that and all the other products I'm using here in the video description below if you're interested in anything. One more. Okay. And it's been too long since I've used the little texture stamp. Let's add a bit of the little dots. I just love the extra little touch this adds. And there you can see that. So we have the makings for, like I said, I think 7 cards right here. And it is not going to take long to turn them into finished projects. So let me bring in, I already have my card bases folded in half. We are just going to add dimensionals to the backs of these pieces. And I do need to add greetings. So what I'm going to do right now is lay these out how I think I want to use them and decide where to put my greetings. And we'll see if we can fit them all on the screen at one time. As I finish these, you'll see I do want to add a few finishing touches. We need a greeting, of course. And then I also want to add I've got some beautiful coordinating ribbon that I am going to add to a few of these. But I think these are going to be just lovely. Card sets can be really nice gifts. Now, if you just want to make up several cards at one time, this is a great way to do it easily without a lot of fuss, without a lot of layers or die cutting or all of the craziness we get into sometimes. This is just a really simple way to make some beautiful, clean and simple cards. So I am going to stick to the greetings that came in this set. I have hello, I have thanks, happy birthday, and best wishes. It's kind of a nice assortment for, it's one of those stamp sets that's one of my favorite types because it includes beautiful images and some really nice basic greetings that can be used over and over again. So I am going to start inking some of these greeting stamps and stamping where I want them. We'll do happy birthday there. I think I'm going to keep all of my greetings in Orchid Oasis. And since it's a little bit darker, it does allow me to stamp over top of some things, like right there on that flower. This one right here, let's do a little fun technique. I am going to stamp once, twice, 3 times to get that faded color, and we'll put that strip on right there. Let's see, I haven't used best wishes. I love this. This is perfect for a wedding card, for example. You could use it for other things as well. Stamp that right there. Am I missing any? Oh, I have not stamped hello. Let's stamp hello. Right there. I really need more wedding cards in my collection, so that seems like a good reason to do more best wishes, right? Best wishes. And I love this big thanks. It's just so pretty. It takes up a nice amount of space, which I like. Let's stamp it up here on this one, just because I think I'm gonna like the way it looks. Oh, doesn't that look nice? Okay, friends, let's go ahead and add dimensionals to the backs of these. When you do clean and simple cards like this, you can definitely put those pieces down with some adhesive directly on the card base if you want to. I think it's nice just to add a special little touch on some of these simple cards to use dimensionals. So, and I'm debating on this one. On this one, I am going to just put a couple, because they overlap. I have to be careful about how I do my, where I put them. If I have one overlapping and then I put another dimensional on the corner, it may not lay right. If you have any idea what I'm talking about, I don't really feel like I'm using my words very well right now, but I'm going to put them on like that, and we will come back to this in a second. So the way I'm putting my dimensionals on, this is my take your pick tool. It is so helpful. One of my favorite tools. I think I have a lot of favorite tools. I say this is my favorite and this is my favorite. And, you know, I have a lot of favorites. I have a lot of things I could not live without in my craft room. I think you understand what I'm saying, right? So I use this in so many different ways, but this is one of the ways. If you have trouble with your hands, if you have trouble picking off the little foam pieces and pulling off the paper backing. Actually, I don't know why I always forget this, but you can actually stick the dimensional on and remove the paper backing all at once. So since I'm remembering, here's how you do it. So if you're paying attention, you can stick it on and lift that paper backing off all at the same time. Now I just have to be careful not to drop something on top of that one now that the paper backing is removed, right? So I want to show you how I'm going to finish these in just a minute. So I will add these dimensionals. I am removing that backing. I don't know if you're able to see that or not, but this is a really great tip. I even know, you know, I have upper 30 something hands and fingers, but I can already tell they don't work quite as well as they did in my 20s, for example. And I'm sure as I age, I'll have to learn new ways of doing certain things. This one doesn't want to come off here. Learn new ways of doing some things. So using this tool this way can be really helpful if you do have any trouble with your hands. So we've got 3 more here, and then we get to see the fun part. We'll see them come together. I'll add some finishing touches to a few of them with this absolutely beautiful ribbon. I'll bring it in here so I can tell you about it while I'm doing dimensionals. This is called metallic woven ribbon. This is the Orchid Oasis color. It comes in several colors, but one of my favorite things about Stampin' Up! And our products is the coordination. I was talking to someone here not too long ago who's pretty new at this, and she was talking about how frustrated she was spending so much time getting things to match. And I was reminiscing on my days prior to Stampin' Up! Where, oh my gosh, I think I would spend hours trying to find things that coordinated. Trying to find paper that matched more paper, that matched some cardstock, that matched some ribbon and some gems, and that can seriously take a lot of time. The coordination of our papers and our inks and our embellishments saves so very much time, and I feel like I get to spend my time doing what I want to do, which is creating, and not what I don't want to do, which is trying to get things to match. So this ribbon matches my ink perfectly, which is really helpful. Okay, now on a few of these, I will add some bows. I may add some details. I am just going to flip them over, see what I think. If I'm ready to put it down, I will add that piece down. And I believe I want to add a little bow on this one. So I've tied a few of these ahead of time. I do have a video with some really helpful bow tying tips. I will add that to those links in the description. Glue dots, a crafter's best friend. These are the absolute best way to attach bows and any large awkward things like buttons, for example, to your projects. They are the best. Here is one. I had not removed these dimensional backs yet, but we now have one of our cards done and the rest to be done within just a couple of minutes. This one, I love the simplicity of this. I am not going to add a single thing to that. It would be beautiful with a bow. It would be beautiful with a few gems. But look how pretty that is and how easily it came together. Okay, this is our last one that I need to take the paper pieces off of. And this one I'll have to do a little bit of planning with my layout. So I'll show you when I have 3 of something on a card, there is a particular way I like to lay them out. Sometimes when I create backgrounds with 3 strips, for example, I will do something like this, but I always start on one edge Do the one on one edge or one side. Next, does it matter which one goes where? I don't really think so. I'll put that one in the center, I guess. So next, I want to do the one down here, and I want to leave that same size border I did there approximately. My friends, no one will ever look at your cards with as much scrutiny as you do, so they do not need to be perfect. Now, I can lay this one over top so that I have about the same amount overlapping here as down here. And here you can see this one. Now, I do think this one would look nice with a little bow or something. I created this one, I tied a little bit differently with a loop at the top. Thought that would be a fun variation, a fun different way to use this ribbon. I'm going to show you, so glue dots sometimes are bigger than your ribbon knot. And if any of that glue dot hangs out, it's going to be a problem, right? Because it will stick to your envelope or whatever's on top. But I don't know if you saw how I did that. I just rolled it up. I rolled up the glue dot with my thumb so it was in like a little, let's call it a soft taco shell rolled up. And once it's rolled up like that, it should fit very nicely behind your knot so that it doesn't stick to anything it's not supposed to. Now I'm having a moment. Yeah, this card is opening a different direction than I thought it was going to. I'm glad I didn't put this together upside down. Sometimes I like to have even borders at the top and bottom, and sometimes I don't. I almost centered this, and then I decided, you know what, let's do a little bit smaller border at the bottom than at the top. And I like the way that one looks. I do have a couple more bows here, so as we go, I'll see where I want to put them. Okay, do I want this way? Do I want it this way? I don't really think it matters. Let's put it right there. This is one I think it would look nice with something added to it. But I've got two more here. Let's get them together and then decide where to put my last two bows. Okay, this one I think turned out really nicely. What should I do? Send me a shout out down below. Should it be centered? Should it be left? Should it be right? Let's just go centered. Let's keep it simple. Last but not least, this one I'm not centering. I have a tendency to put a lot of things off to the right, just like this one, and I think that looks nice. So I am going to add bows to these two. I've got two more here. So here I'll show you, if you missed it the first time, I am going to roll this up like a little taco. That one didn't end up rolled as much as it ended up just folded in half, but that works too. And put that one here. Last one, this was a little double bow I tied with two different pieces of that ribbon. And my glue dots are self-imploding over here. They're sticking to themselves. So here's one that I peeled off. Let's get that on the back of this adorable little bow. I love this little tiny one, this little tiny double bow right here. So I may come back in and add some sequins or some gems to these, but let's look at these real quickly, just see how they turned out. So if you want the template for how I cut my pieces of white cardstock, or if you want to see still photos of these, use the link down below and you can go to my website and get those things. But let's go through. This is card number 2. Here's card number 3, best wishes. Really like how this one turned out, thanks. This nice one with the 3 different squares on it. I love the simplicity of this one. And this nice one with the rose border along the bottom. So thank you so much for watching along. I really appreciate you being here. If you're new, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel. Send me a comment down below, give this a like, help other stampers find my videos as well. If you're interested in those products, the links are down below. When you shop with me, you will get a thank you from me in the mail, as well as some other fun goodies. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you shopping with me. I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope you'll be back again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.